A team archetype in Pokemon is a way to categorize the overarching plan or strategy behind a team. Pokemon teams may not always fall into specific labels, and sometimes archetypes will blend together. But for the most part, this is still a useful way to classify and understand competitive Pokemon teams. Let's talk about the different team archetypes that we're seeing so far in Pokemon Champions doubles. This metagame is really centered around weather. There are certain Pokemon that can set a weather effect on the field as soon as they switch in. So I think the most prominent archetype you're going to see in the current Pokemon Champions metagame is some sort of weather balance. A balanced team is one that aims to have a good mix of everything on it, to cover as many different matchups as possible and be well-rounded, meaning they have a good mix of offensive, defensive, and utility Pokemon on the team. And I think at the moment, the majority of balanced teams in Pokemon Champions doubles are running some sort of weather setter on them. At the very least, this is a nice countermeasure against enemy weather effects, since when you send out a weather setting Pokemon, it will overwrite the previous weather effect on the field with a new one. So that's always nice to have. And it's not too much of a commitment to then run a little bit of weather synergy yourself that might be useful to you. These teams are not all in necessarily on the weather, but they have a weather setter and maybe one or two Pokemon that synergize with that weather. And then the rest of the team looks more like a standard balanced team with just generically good Pokemon on them. The most central force in this weather-centric metagame right now is Mega Charizard Y, a very powerful Mega Evolution that has the ability Drought to immediately set Sun on the field upon Mega Evolving. Mega Charizard Y is not only a weather setter, but a weather abuser, with the bonus damage from the Sun boosting the power of Fire-type attacks. It has a very powerful Spread Heat Wave, which hits both opponents for incredible damage. Its special attack is extremely high, boosted further by the Sun. Mega Charizard Y also has Solar Beam, which is usually a charge move, but in the Sun, this will hit through instantly with a above-average power of 120. Mega Charizard Y is so good on its own merits as a weather setter and abuser that you often don't even need any other Sun synergy to work with it, and you can just run this plus a fairly normal balanced team alongside the Mega Charizard Y with reliable Pokemon like Incineroar, Whimsicott, Garchomp, etc. But the one Sun synergy you might see on a Mega Charizard Y team is Venusaur. Venusaur is a good Pokemon in the Sun because of its ability Chlorophyll, which grants double speed if Sunny Day is active. Venusaur is one of the few Pokemon in the game with Sleep Inflicting, and with such high speed and a Sleep Inflicting move, it can be an incredible disruptor alongside the Charizard, as well as a threat in its own right with Solar Beam, Sludge Bomb, and it has useful coverage like Earth Power as well. Certainly a strong Pokemon alongside Charizard Y, but not strictly necessary just because of how self-sufficient the Pokemon is. Here's an example of a Mega Charizard Y team built by Nixter that did pretty well in a tournament. And as you can see, Mega Charizard Y is here, and the only real Sun abuser besides it is Venusaur. The rest of the team is just generically good Pokemon. Whimsicott is here as a prankster support with Tailwind. Incineroar is here for its ever-valuable Intimidate and Fake Out combination. And Incineroar does get a bit out of the Sun synergy, but it would be good either way. Doesn't need Sun to be powerful. King Gambit is here as a strong and bulky physical attacker with some priority in the form of Sucker Punch, a deterrent for enemy Intimidate with Defiant, just generally a good guy. And Garchomp is here, another solid Pokemon with a good mix of offense and defense. This right here is a perfect example of a Sun-balanced team, built around a Charizard Y. And Charizard Y is the reason for the very weather-centric metagame right now, I would say. It's kind of the Pokemon to beat right now, and it's the reason it's so worthwhile to run a weather setter even if your team isn't carrying any weather synergy, purely because shutting down the Sun for Charizard Y is so valuable. Another central weather setter in the format is Pelipper, who has the ability Drizzle, which will immediately set rain on the field. Pelipper is fantastic right now. It is incredible against Charizard Y to remove its Sun and even reduce the power of Fire-type attacks. But also there's plenty of great rain synergy to take advantage of that Pelipper can abuse. Pelipper itself has nice utility too. Outside of just setting rain on the field, it has access to Tailwind, the ever-valuable form of speed control that doubles your team's speed for 2 turns. It has a perfectly accurate Hurricane in the rain it sets. It has access to Wide Guard, which shields your allies from multi-target moves. And it even has moves like Icy Wind to lower speed. It has Weather Ball, which hits very hard in the rain. There is much to appreciate about Pelipper. It is just a very solid Pokemon. Pelipper, however, is not as self-sufficient as something like a Mega Charizard Y. Pelipper is not the most insane threat on its own, and it usually will want to run a bit more synergy for its weather than other Pokemon. But luckily, it's not much of a cost to do so in the metagame right now, because Archaludon is in the game, and this is a really excellent rain synergy and a generally good Pokemon that I think is still effective whether rain is up or not. This is a Steel Dragon type Pokemon with incredible stats, a high special attack stat of 125, and the move Electro Shot, which is where the rain synergy comes in. Electro Shot is similar to Solar Beam. It is a charge move that attacks on the second turn and needs to charge on the first turn. But if rain is up, it will execute immediately. But this is even better than Solar Beam because it has a 130 power and it raises your special attack when you use it. This move is insane, and it's a serious incentive to run Archaludon on a rain team. It's a really obvious and natural synergy. Archaludon also benefits from the incredible ability Stamina, which boosts its defense every single time it takes damage from an attack. And Archaludon can fill out the rest of its moveset with generally good special attacks like Flash Cannon or Dragon Pulse. Another great rain synergy is Basculegion, and Basculegion has two different ways to abuse the rain. Basculegion can use the ability Swift Swim for double speed in the rain, with a hard-hitting Wave Crash also boosted by the rain. This is a formidable threat. The other thing Basculegion can do is run Adaptability, which enhances its same type attack bonus to double damage instead of just 1.5x damage. And this is the more common option, just because it's a bit more reliable, and is good whether rain is up or not. The most popular set for Basculegion right now is Choice Scarf, to increase its speed, Adaptability for the same type attack bonus, and then Wave Crash for high damage with recoil, Flip Turn for a form of pivoting, Last Respect for Ghost Stab, and Aqua Jet for some priority. What's nice about these rain abusers alongside a Pelipper is that they love when rain is up, but they're still functional when rain isn't up. So you're hedging your bets a little bit. And if you lose the weather war and your opponent KOs your Pelipper and has sand or sun up, it's not a complete disaster for you. Your Pokemon are still functional, but if you do win the weather war and rain stays up, you get to push your advantage further with hard-hitting water moves from Basculegion and the incredible Electro Shot on Archaludon. These are the two most common rain abusers right now. There's also fringe ones like Mega Starmie, another water-type physical threat with pure power. Mega Feraligatr is another option. Mega Dragonite is quite good because it gets a perfectly accurate Hurricane in the rain. And the Dragon Flying typing along with Multi-Scale actually gives your team a bit of defensive backbone, and an alternative Tailwind setter is nice as well. Mega Meganium can also fit well on rain teams because rain reduces fire-type damage, which shields Mega Meganium from otherwise threatening flames. The same is true of Mega Aggron. And the rest of the team on these rain teams is usually filled out with generically strong utility Pokemons, usually an Incineroar, because of course Sinistcha tends to be good on these squads. It heals up the Archaludon. It's useful for redirection and such. And you'll often see Sneasler or Garchomp on these as well, because they're powerful Pokemon that tend to be consistent. This is a cool example of a rain balance team from the player Quello Scarso, used in a tournament as well. It has the Pelipper, Basculegion, and Archaludon for the rain core, of course, getting synergy out of the weather, but then the rest of the team doesn't necessarily need weather, it's just a series of good Pokemon. Sinistcha, Incineroar, and Mega Altaria as the Mega of choice. A little bit of a novel choice there, actually. And not one that really gets anything out of the weather, probably just being used for its powerful spread Hyper Voice boosted by Pixelate. Next we have Snow. And Snow is having a real moment right now with the fantastic introduction of Mega Frostlass, who is perhaps the most powerful Snow set that we have ever seen. Mega Frostlass is really strong. This new Mega is an Ice Ghost type with the ability Snow Warning to set Snow on the field upon Mega evolving. It has a great speed stat of 120 base, solid special attack of 140, and a great move pool to abuse the snow with. Blizzard is fantastic. It's a spread move that hits both opponents, with a high power of 110. It has 70 accuracy, but in the snow, it's perfectly accurate. This is a truly incredible option on a Pokemon that immediately sets snow. Mega Frostlass also has Aurora Veil, which is a screen effect that can only work if snow is up. And for 5 turns, this causes all damage against your team to be halved. Absolutely incredible move, and a big reason why you would run a snow team in the first place. Mega Frostlass is also the definition of self-sufficient, because there's not really that many snow abusers in the game. Often Mega Frostlass is being used as the only snow abuser, and the rest of the team is a full-on balanced team with no snow synergy whatsoever. The closest thing you might see to a snow synergy here is maybe a Mamoswine who gets an ice defense boost in the snow, I suppose. Glaceon if you want to go for a proper snow synergy with Snow Cloak for evasion, but I don't think that's very good, to be honest. Don't think Glaceon's that strong. And then there's Rotom Frost, who gets a defense boost in the snow and can also use Blizzard itself. I think that's probably the best snow synergy you could go for if you choose to. But of all of these weather setters, Mega Frostlass is probably the most self-sufficient, actually. It's just a strong, fast special attacker with the utility of Aurora Veil that serves to pretty much erase the enemy's weather as it exists. And it's a great mega to run on a balanced team for that reason. You can just use it as a strong special attacker and a contingency plan against enemy weather at the same time. And that's the reason I think it's so solid. Here is a nice example of a snow balanced team with a Mega Frostlass on it, built by the player Luzi VGC from an online tournament. And as you can see, the Mega Frostlass is here, but there is no snow synergy whatsoever on the squad. Kingambit and Garchomp are here as solid, bulky attackers. Garchomp operating as a bit of speed control with the Choice Scarf on. Primarina's here. Good Pokemon offensively and defensively into the metagame. Sinistcha is also here. Some support, healing, defense, utility. And then there's Rotom Heat, who seems to round out the team typing-wise. Has a powerful Stab Overheat for coverage. Levitation to be used alongside Garchomp, who can Earthquake without worrying about hurting the oven. So this is mostly just a solid, balanced team with the Mega Frostlass as a strong, self-sufficient weather setter. But Mega Frostlass is not the only viable snow setter in the game. If you don't want to spend your Mega slot on a snow setter, you can instead run Alolan Ninetales, who is solid in its own right. Alolan Ninetales is not as impressive on the stats department as Mega Frostlass, but it's still quite good, with a strong speed stat, and the same great combination of Blizzard and Aurora Veil plus Snow setting. And Alolan Ninetales allows you to run a different Mega if you want, while still having a decent, fast attacker that can reset enemy weather, and give your team access to Aurora Veil. This team by the player Snivy13 is a good example of a Ninetales Alola Snow team, and in a similar vein, as you can see, there's no snow synergy on the team. It's just a lone Alola Ninetales as a contingency plan against enemy weather, and a way to use Blizzard and Aurora Veil self-sufficiently. The Mega of choice here is Floette, who of course gets a lot out of Aurora Veil to enhance its bulk, and it appreciates having an ally to cancel enemy weather to keep it safe too. And this squad is pretty similar to the Mega Frostlass one. We've got Incineroar and Kingambit here, Sinistcha for support and healing, and a Scarf Basculegion as a fast offensive threat with a bit of speed control too from the Choice Scarf. And finally there is Sand Balance, which is what I've been using as a Tyranitar fan, and also because I feel like it's really strong in the metagame right now. These teams are built around Tyranitar, and I think Tyranitar is fantastic as an anti-meta, anti-weather guy. It sets sand on the field as soon as it switches in, which cancels out all enemy weather, and deals chip damage to everything that's not rock, ground, or steel type. Tyranitar also gets a special defense boost in the sand, because all rock types get a special defense boost in the sand. So this feels incredibly well suited to counter all other sorts of weather. It denies Charizard Y from being able to use Solar Beam, and defends against it incredibly well with the high special defense and fire resistance. Plus it lethally threatens Charizard Y with Rock Slide. The same is true of Pelipper. You remove their option of Weather Ball by removing the weather. You completely shrug off Hurricane or any other water coverage, do your special defense boost, and you threaten them lethally with Rock Slide. Guess what? You also threaten all of the snow setters lethally with Rock Slide, and you deny them the option of Aurora Veil or Accurate Blizzard. I think Tyranitar is not only just a solid Pokemon on its own merits, with its great bulk, nice move pool, this stab spread move of Rock Slide, stab, crunch, or knockoff, which hits so much, and then low kick is what I've been using to hit Kingambit and enemy Tyranitar and other things. This Pokemon is just solid on its own merits. Sand is nice because the chip damage breaks a lot of focus sashes and sturdies and multiscales, which has its value, but also it destroys every other sort of weather. And Tyranitar is so good in its own merits that it also doesn't really need any weather synergy. You can run Excadrill alongside it, and this is a good option. Excadrill has the ability Sand Rush, which grants double speed in the sand. And with a high attack stat and great physical move pool, this can be an incredible fast sweeper if you manage to keep Sun up. But I personally, on my sand balance team, I'm not really running Excadrill. I suppose the only sand synergy I really have are a couple Pokemon immune to sand, Garchomp and Corviknight, but they're good anyway, whether sand is up or not, so that doesn't really matter. Tyranitar is just here for its strong presence as a bulky attacker and an anti-meta, anti-weather guy, primarily. Now what's nice about Tyranitar is you can use it with or without its Mega. I mean, the Pokemon is so solid in its base form with great stats, and it gets a lot out of different items, but Mega Tyranitar is great, not only because the stats are so much higher and it hits like a damn truck with an incredible physical attack stat, the bulk is huge, but also it allows you to set sand again. If you switch in Tyranitar, and then they reset weather at some point by going to Pelipper or Charizard or Ninetales, if you Mega Evolve Tyranitar, you set sand again. So it's another reason why this is such a good anti-meta weather setter, because it can reset the weather twice if it's running a Mega Stone. This is my own sand balance team that I use to hit Master Ball rank. Very prestigious team. You'll notice that there's no Incineroar or Sneasel on here, and that's primarily because I didn't actually get them for much of my free-to-play experience, and so I built with the best things they gave me. But to be honest, I actually think this team is solid without them. I'm running Mega Kangaskhan because she's a mother, and I respect her. And she also has Scrappy Fake Out, and the powerful parental bond ability and stuff like that. Even with my access to Incineroar and Sneasel now, I still feel like this is my best team, maybe just because I'm so used to using it, but it feels solid and it feels equipped to handle most of the metagame in my experience, and I will continue to perfect it over time. So this is the form that balanced teams are taking in the current metagame, I think. I suppose you could run a balanced team without a weather setter at all and probably do alright, but it feels like you might as well just throw a Tyranitar or a Ninetales or a Frostlass on there if you don't have a weather contingency plan, just because they're solid Pokemon in their own right that happen to reset the enemy's weather and disrupt them a little bit. So this feels like the way that balanced teams are being built right now from what I have observed. I think the next prominent archetype that you're seeing right now in the current Pokemon Champions doubles metagame is setup balance. I would also categorize this as balance because they usually do have the similar backbone of Pokemon to these weather balance teams I've talked about, with Pokemon like Incineroar, Garchomp, Tailwind setters, etc. But these teams will also carry a setup sweeper and an ally that helps that setup sweeper as the main game plan of the team. The big setup sweeper that everyone's building around right now that you're gonna see the most is certainly Mega Floette. Mega Floette is incredibly central right now, with its enormous special attack of 155, the ability Fairy Aura to boost those fairy type attacks even further, a solid 102 speed which just outruns a bunch of other base 100 megas, and then the straightforward combination of Calm Mind and Dazzling Gleam, which is a fairy attack that hits both opponents. The plan of these setup Mega Floette teams is pretty simple. You want to use Calm Mind as much as you can, and click Dazzling Gleam to hit both opponents for big damage as much as you can, while shielding the Mega Floette from harm and helping it to set up and click the moves. So far, the most common team made with Mega Floette to enable this game plan has been Maushold, the altruistic mouse family that we love so much. Although in this case, I think they might be complicit in something a little bit immoral, which is a Mega Floette clicking Dazzling Gleam, but that's alright, I don't blame them for the crimes of Mega Floette necessarily. Maushold is great because it has the ability Friend Guard, which reduces incoming damage from your ally by 25%. That is obviously really good at helping the ally select Calm Mind more often, since it's shielded from incoming damage generically. And Maushold also has Follow Me, which forces single target attacks to hit Maushold rather than Floette. So even if they chose to hit Floette, they'll hit Maushold instead if it uses Follow Me. So this straightforward combination of Floette and Maushold is the crux of these setup teams. Maushold is incredible at enabling the Floette to set up Calm Mind boosts and sweep. It also has Helping Hand to boost the power of Dazzling Gleam and get more KOs. It's got Super Fang to also help get more KOs. Super Fang just deals half of a target's current HP in damage. Pokemon with redirection moves tend to synergize well with setup sweepers. Mousehold is the most prominent right now because Friend Guard is so great and its other utility is so great. But there's also Clefable, who is quite good, and Clefable also has access to Follow Me. It has Life Dew as well, which is a move that heals you and your ally for 1/4 of their max HP, 25%. And Clefable's a bit sturdier and bulkier than Mousehold. It sticks around for longer, tends to carry a Citrus Berry for a one-time heal. Fairy typing also has its value, and Unaware has its value to ignore enemy boosts. So Clefable can be used here. So can Vivillon, the funny butterfly. It has Rage Powder for redirection and Sleep Powder along with Compound Eyes to increase accuracy. This accurate sleep move is very nice, also at enabling an ally to set up because you are putting a target to sleep, meaning they can't do an attack to hit the Floette, you know? So you can redirect them, disrupt them with sleep, and Vivillon is helpful for that. Mega Floette is the big boost sweeper that you're going to see right now, but another one I've seen is also Como-O. Como-O is quite good, and it's not a Mega Evolution, which is an advantage. Como-O has Clangorous Soul, which is a unique boost move that subtracts 33% of its health when it's cast, so there's a bit of a cost, but you get +1 to all stats upon doing so. Very much worth that health cost, I think, for such an insane boost. Como-O can really ramp out of control with appropriate support from something like a Mousehold or a Clefable. And it also has Clanging Scales, which is a spread move with 110 power. It will lower your defense when used, but this move is insane. It hits both opponents for a massive power, 100% accuracy, very strong spread move. So Como-O can also be used on these setup teams, alongside a redirector with mechanics like Friend Guard and Life Dew to keep sustaining the setup sweeper and help them to keep clicking their buttons and boosting up further. That's the basic idea behind setup balance. This team by the player WBVG is a good example of a setup balance squad. It's got the Mega Floette Mousehold combo, as mentioned. It has Incineroar and Garchomp. Talonflame is a Tailwind setter, which is always nice to have. And then good old Primarina to round out the typing. Very nice against enemy Incineroar, Garchomp, etc. Also actually synergizes with Mega Floette because of Fairy Aura. If Mega Floette's on the field, it will also boost the damage of Primarina's Fairy moves, so that's another interesting synergy. And the other team archetype you're going to see quite commonly is Hard Trick Room. Trick Room is a field condition and a form of speed control that will cause the slower Pokemon to move first instead of the faster Pokemon for 5 turns. And this is a concept that you can build a team around, because there are a lot of Pokemon that are really slow but really powerful. If Trick Room is active, these guys turn into incredible threats, moving first due to their low speed. And there is a distinction to be made, I think, between Hard Trick Room and other teams that run Trick Room. Because sometimes teams will use Trick Room as a alternate game plan or a backup plan if things go badly, without necessarily building the whole team around it. Sinistcha will commonly carry Trick Room just in case it needs it. But these teams, the hard Trick Room teams, are specifically built around getting Trick Room up in almost every game and abusing it to the maximum capacity with slow Pokemon that put up a serious threat, and this being the primary game plan of the team. These teams tend to be extremely aggressive. Trick Room only lasts for 5 turns, and your goal is to do as much damage in those 5 turns as you possibly can, and then clean up, or ideally win, before Trick Room is over. The most central Pokemon on the Trick Room archetype right now is the giraffe himself, Farigiraf. This is the most reliable Trick Room setter in the game at the moment, for a few reasons. First of all, the ability Armor Tail is absolutely perfect for a Trick Room setter. This ability is amazing, and what it does is it shields you and your allies from priority moves. And this is amazing for multiple reasons. First of all, Fake Out is a priority move, and Fake Out is an incredible form of disruption that has a 100% flinch chance. Other Trick Room setters are under fire from Fake Out because it can just stop them from setting Trick Room straightforwardly. Farigiraf doesn't have to worry about that. The other reason this is good is because once Trick Room is up, priority moves will still go first, even though Trick Room is up. So if your opponent has Aqua Jet or Sucker Punch or moves like this can be a form of counterplay against Trick Room because they will still go first. But Armor Tail also shields your team from those. So for this reason, Armor Tail and Trick Room is just an amazing combo. Farigiraf is also quite bulky. It has a high HP stat. Its defenses aren't the best, but if you invest in the defense, the HP does a lot of heavy lifting, making Farigiraf incredibly reliable at setting Trick Room. This guy also has some good utility. Helping Hand to help your Trick Room ally deal even more damage. Imprison to deny the enemy of important options. When you use Imprison, they can't use any moves that you know. And I think Twin Beam is a good option in this current meta. This is a psychic type special attack that hits twice with 40 power on each hit. And this is good because it kills Sneasler and powers through its focus sash if it has one. So the Giraffe is the central guy that actually sets the Trick Room for your allies. But then you need Trick Room abusers, don't you? Well, the big one is Torkoal, the turtle himself. Torkoal is an amazing Trick Room abuser. It has a base 20 speed, usually a terrible drawback, but in the Trick Room it's an incredible advantage. This will be slower than absolutely everything, pretty much. Torkoal sets Sun on the field with Drought, and it has the move Eruption. Eruption is an amazing move in Trick Room, because this move has more power the more HP you have, with a maximum power of 150 if you're at full HP. This move also hits both opponents. So in an ideal world, if you click this while at full HP, the damage is absolutely insane, especially because it's boosted by Sun. Since this move loses power if you take damage, it's ideal to use this first in a turn, because if you attack first, you can't lower the power of the move by taking damage. And that's the beauty of using it in Trick Room, because you will be going first as a result of your incredibly low speed. With a Charcoal equipped to boost fire damage further, and even sometimes Helping Hand to also boost the damage further, Eruption just goes absolutely insane. This is also a form of weather contingency to erase rain and sand and snow from the field and disrupt your enemy's game plan a little bit, so that's also convenient. Most Trick Room teams will just throw Incineroar on. It's always good, it works on any team, but in particular on Trick Room it actually turns into a bit of a threat, due to its low speed of base 60 and its decent attack set of 115. So in the Trick Room, Incineroar is actually moving first, which makes it even scarier. That's a benefit of Trick Room, is that it turns the already great Incineroar into an even stronger Pokemon than you thought possible. And beyond that, there are a few different options. Certain Mega Evolutions work well on Trick Room, like Mega Golurk. Mega Golurk is extremely slow with only base 55 speed and has a massive attack stat of 159. As a ground ghost type, it is immune to Fake Out, which is nice, if the Giraffe is not there for support, and Unseen Fist is also a cool ability that deals damage through Protect. It only deals a quarter of the usual damage, but that's still useful. I personally think Mega Golurk is a bit of a fraud though, and I don't like him or respect him. I'm personally more fond of Mega Crabominable, who has a bit more going for it in my opinion. Very similar Pokemon, also incredibly slow with base 33 speed, and a high attack stat and good bulk. But the reason I prefer Mega Crabominable is because Crabominable in its base form has the ability Hyper Cutter, which prevents its attack stat from being lowered. So it has this insurance against Incineroar's Intimidate, which would otherwise punish most physical attackers. So that's incredibly useful. Also, I just think Fighting and Ice is such an amazing offensive combination, and Mega Crabominable is more widely threatening to more things. Something bad about Mega Golurk is that it's very reliant on the move Poltergeist, which only works if the opponent has a held item. And in a metagame where often Pokemon consume their berries and are left with no held item, this can be unreliable. Mega Crab, on the other hand, is not as worried about having strong stab moves. Mega Drampa is also a good option, and one that I think is fairly solid on Trick Room. It is a slow, special attacking Mega with solid bulk. Great special attacks out of 160. It's got the spread option of Hyper Voice with stab on it. Usually runs Dragon Pulse for singles target stab. It can also run Calm Mind to be a bit of a semi-setup team too, if you have a turn to spare on that. And you have the ability Berserk, which grants a special attack boost if you're half HP or less. So as they're trying to defeat you, you get more powerful. Mega Drampa can certainly work well. Now, something awkward about Trick Room teams is the Trick Room mirror is weird. When both of your teams are running slow guys built around Trick Room, you'll find yourself in a bit of a stalemate when both teams are built like this. Setting Trick Room isn't even that useful when you're probably both running the Torkoal and the Crabominable, and they're all as slow as they can be. So I think the best Trick Room teams have a contingency plan for the Trick Room mirror, and run some backup Pokemon with a bit of speed to help in that instance. This team from Freezai, I think, is a good example. This is a Mega Crabominable Trick Room team with the core of 4 that is just brought in most matchups. The Giraffe, the Turtle, the Crab, and Incineroar. Those 4 are just going to do perfectly fine in the vast majority of matchups against normal, non-Trick Room teams. But then, in the event that you're up against an enemy Trick Room team, you have the backup plan of the Ninetales, who is fast and has Aurora Veil, which can assist your slow threats to be bulkier. Snow conveniently boosts the defense of the Crabominable for a synergy there, so it becomes like a weird Mega Crabominable support team. And there's also Basculegion, who is an effective Pokemon, I would assume, against enemy Trick Room teams, with its Choice Scarf equipped, high damage output with adaptability, and the powerful Last Respects and Wave Crash for stab. Some Trick Room teams go in a different direction. They have a backup Trick Room setter like a Hatterene or a Sinistchar. Perhaps they have a Tailwind setter even for Trick Room mirrors. The Farigiraf can have Imprisoned Trick Room to deny them from using Trick Room if their guys are even slower than yours, which is a weird scenario of speed tiers, but that can happen. But this tends to be how Trick Room teams are built in Pokemon Champions right now. It is a good archetype, but it's also very all-in and very aggressive. You really need to win quickly and get the most out of the Trick Room turns, and often if you don't, your team will fizzle out, Trick Room will dissipate, the enemy will be faster than you again, and it's very difficult to set Trick Room a second time after you've gone all in on it. But it is certainly a fun way to play that's very aggressive. If you enjoy aggressive playstyles in other games, then maybe this would be the team style for you. And those are the main meta archetypes in the game right now, I would say. And sometimes it's a bit hard to classify doubles teams into archetypes super cleanly, because in a format where you bring 6 Pokemon but pick 4, your archetype can kind of change depending on the matchup. You can have tech Pokemon or Pokemon that change what your game plan is depending on what you're facing. So in that sense, archetypes can be malleable, and it's not always easy to label teams, but that is the way I would characterize the main teams I've seen in the metagame so far. And there are also some fringe archetypes that are worth talking about, I suppose. They're not as central and forefront as the ones prior mentioned, but they do exist and are worth noting. One of them is Psychic Terrain Hyper Offense. Psychic Terrain has been a more prominent part of prior doubles metagames because of direct Psychic Terrain setters like Indeedee and Tapu Lele with Psychic Surge. But in the current metagame, those Pokemon don't exist and Psychic Terrain has to be set manually. Psychic Terrain is a field condition that boosts the power of Psychic type damage on the field for 5 turns for all grounded Pokemon, and also shields your grounded Pokemon from priority. And in Psychic Terrain, the move Expanding Force receives a buff. This is usually just an 80 power special attack, but in Psychic Terrain the power is boosted by 1.5x, and it hits both opponents, which is absolutely insane, especially because Psychic Terrain also boosts the power of psychic damage on top of that. So there is an incentive still to set Psychic Terrain manually, even though it's a bit cumbersome compared to prior metagames, because Mega Alakazam exists, and Mega Alakazam with Expanding Force in Psychic Terrain is one of the scariest things ever. This guy has a huge special attack stat of 175, it's incredibly fast, with 150 base speed, even outrunning Dragapult, and Expanding Force will one-shot just about everything if they're taking neutral damage. Shielding you from priority is also very nice, because you are a bit weak and you would otherwise be vulnerable to things like Sucker Punch and Fake Out and Extreme Speed. So these sorts of Psychic Terrain offense teams with Mega Alakazam do exist. Meowstic is the most popular Psychic Terrain setter because it has Prankster and can set Psychic Terrain with priority. It also learns Expanding Force itself and can use Helping Hand to assist the Mega Alakazam and increase its damage output even further. There is potential here. The archetype is a bit unexplored, but I will say that it's risky to run this when Dark types are so prominent, and Mega Alakazam's only real solution to the Dark type problem is to run Focus Blast, which does hit them for massive super effective damage, but is also extremely inaccurate with only a 70% accuracy. So that is certainly an issue. If an Incineroar just dodges Focus Blast, your entire game plan goes down the toilet, regrettably. So that's probably the reason you're not seeing this more often, is just because of the simple problem of Dark types existing and being immune to Psychic, and the only real solution for that being Focus Blast. And perhaps there's a way to optimize this sort of team and run an ally that solves this problem a bit more cleanly to assist Mega Alakazam. It's possible, I think. At the moment, though, I would call this more of a fringe archetype, not at the forefront of things. Fellow YouTuber PokeAim built a pretty solid Mega Alakazam Meowstic Psychic Terrain team, which I think is a solid example of what I'm talking about. And finally, I would say that Gimmick teams are sort of an archetype. A Gimmick team is one that's built around a silly, humorous synergy that is often very specific, and aims to sort of catch the opponent off guard. These teams can do great if your opponent doesn't see it coming, but often completely fail if your opponent is prepared for them. And the most prominent Gimmick team that you've probably seen on Ranked Ladder at least once, because it's a funny synergy that many YouTubers have talked about, is the Mega Hawlucha plus Excadrill combo. Mega Hawlucha has the ability No Guard, which causes it to have perfectly accurate moves no matter what it uses, but enemy also has perfectly accurate moves against it. Not that useful on Mega Hawlucha itself, it doesn't really get that many good inaccurate moves to boost to perfect accuracy, but if you use Entrainment, this is a move that gives your ability to someone else, so you can give No Guard to an ally, and then use No Guard to abuse one-hit KO moves. Because one-hit KO moves just straight up kill the enemy in a single hit. But they are incredibly inaccurate. They only have 30% accuracy, so that's an incredible risk to go for them. It's usually not worth it. But if you have No Guard, these one-hit KO moves that usually aren't very good are now perfectly accurate. So you can give No Guard to an Excadrill, for example, and now it has Horn Drill, a powerful one-hit KO move that is now perfectly accurate. If you actually pull this off, you can just easily one-hit KO the entire enemy team. Right now, this is the main Gimmick sort of team I'm aware of in Champions, though in past gens there was like Power of Alchemy Muck, which I can't even comprehend, sort of a cosmic horror. Where somehow Muck can get a million boosts alongside a Smeargle. I think it gets moody from Smeargle and gets evasion. I lost to that. Blunder used it against me. It was very embarrassing. It was Muck Monday too, so that added to the embarrassment. But that was past VGC, Gen 9 VGC. Now, such a thing is not possible. So that's good, I guess. But this is possible, the Entrainment Oko move combo. These are fun teams for a joke, but I would probably not recommend using them if you want to get into the game seriously, because they have a ceiling, and they're just a knowledge check, basically. If the enemy sees it coming, it probably won't be very successful. If you see a Mega Hawlucha, it's incredibly telegraphed what you want to go for, and it's going to be pretty easy to stop. And those are team archetypes in Pokemon Champions doubles so far that I have observed. What did you think about my classification of these archetypes? Do you think it was accurate? Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you would like to see more, and thank you very much for watching.